The request arrived while I was washing the green serving bowl I had carried to my daughter's house that afternoon. Dana wanted $38 for my share of dinner. I had already given her $160 for the groceries. Then the family message chimed. Glad I could cover Mom again. Who else believed my daughter was supporting me? I dried my hands, took a screenshot of both messages, and paid the $38. I did not want Dana to tell me later that I had imagined the wording. My kitchen window had gone black. I could see my own face reflected beside the little white payment box. $38 was an amount. Cover Mom again was a story, and I did not yet know how many people had heard it. I did not ask for any part of the $160 back. That money had already bought the chicken, potatoes, green beans, rolls, and pie we had eaten. It had been a gift for a completed meal, and I left it completed. What I changed was the next meal. I opened my paper calendar, turned to the following month's Sunday supper, and wrote 4 words in the square. No envelope next month. Before I could close the calendar, my niece Priya called. Aunt Lorraine, she said, can I ask you something awkward? Those are usually the useful questions. She hesitated. Are you having trouble managing your bills? I sat down. Priya had seen Dana's family message. It reminded her of something Dana had told her a few weeks earlier, that I had missed 2 payments and should not be bothered with family costs. Priya had accepted that explanation because Dana had delivered it in the careful voice people use when they want a rumor to sound like concern. My bills are current, I said, all of them. Then why would she say that? I don't know yet. That was true. I knew why the dinner request offended me. I did not yet know how far the other story had traveled. I'm sorry, Priya said. I should have asked you. Yes, I told her. Next time, ask me. It was a small correction, made in a quiet kitchen with water cooling in the sink. But it changed the question in front of me. This was no longer about whether $38 was rude. It was about how often my daughter had been speaking for me, and how many people had found that arrangement convenient. My name is Lorraine Mercer. I am 69 years old, and before I retired, I spent 32 years working in payroll offices. I was never a manager with a glass wall. I was the woman employees called when an hour was missing, a deduction looked wrong, or a new address had not followed them into the system. I liked clean distinctions. A request was not a debt. A gift was not an agreement. Silence was not approval, although it had taken me much longer to learn that last one. The grocery envelopes had begun 11 months earlier. Dana's husband Marcus had lost his regular overtime at the appliance warehouse. They were not destitute. The mortgage was paid on time, both cars ran, and Marcus still worked full weeks. But the margin that paid for extras had narrowed. Dana loved hosting our monthly family suppers. She liked cloth napkins even when we were eating meatloaf. She liked 2 vegetables, a dessert made from scratch, and enough food left over to press foil packages into people's hands at the door. Those dinners mattered to me too. My younger brother Evan came. Priya came when her nursing schedule allowed. 2 cousins drove in from the next county. No one announced that we were preserving a family bond. We simply passed bowls, complained about road construction, and learned whose roof leaked. The first month after Marcus lost the overtime, Dana called me from the grocery store. I may cancel Sunday, she said. Prices are ridiculous. I could hear embarrassment beneath the irritation. I remembered being 43 and making $1 perform 3 duties. So I told her not to cancel. That afternoon, I put $160 in a plain white envelope and left it in the drawer beside her recipe box. For Sunday, I said. She hugged me. Just until things level out. I did the same thing the next month, then the next. I never called it a loan. I never asked for receipts or repayment. Before each supper, I gave Dana that month's money, and once I gave it, it belonged to her. I thought keeping the arrangement quiet protected her dignity. What I did not notice, or did not want to notice, was how the silence began protecting something else. Dana started answering invitations that were addressed to me. Priya would ask in the family chat whether I wanted to attend a craft fair, and Dana would type, "Mom gets tired in crowds." Evan would suggest lunch, and Dana would say, "I'll check her calendar." The first time I corrected her, she laughed. "Mom likes me to keep her organized." I did not like it. But saying that in front of everyone felt sharper than the offense, so I let the sentence stand. Then she began correcting small details. If I said we had eaten at a restaurant in May, Dana said it had been June. If I said I planned to take my car for service on Thursday, she said, "No, Mom, I wrote Friday down for you." Sometimes she was right, often she was not. That hardly mattered. The pattern taught everyone to look at her after I spoke, as if my words needed a second signature. One Saturday, Evan called Dana while I was sitting 3 feet from him in my own living room. "Does Lorraine still want that folding chair from the garage?" he asked her. Dana looked at me. I said yes. "She says maybe," Dana told him. I corrected her immediately. Evan laughed as though he had missed a family joke, then promised to bring the chair the next week. After he left, I asked Dana why she had changed my answer. "Because you say yes to everything," she said. "Then you regret it." I had not regretted the chair. I had wanted it for the narrow balcony outside my apartment, where the evening sun reached for about 40 minutes. But Dana's explanation sounded more thoughtful than my simple answer. She had turned contradiction into care. The chair did not arrive the following week. Evan gave it to a neighbor after Dana told him I had changed my mind. I remember standing on the balcony that evening with no place to sit. The loss itself was small. A folding chair cost less than a family argument. That was how I measured such things then. I kept choosing the price of the object over the price of being misrepresented. There were other moments. At Priya's birthday lunch, the server asked whether I wanted coffee. Dana answered, "Decaf for Mom." "Regular," I said. Dana touched my wrist. "You told me caffeine keeps you awake." "It does if I drink it at night." The server looked between us. I repeated, "Regular, please." Dana withdrew her hand, but for the rest of the meal she treated my coffee as evidence of stubbornness. When I slept perfectly well that night, there was no audience for that fact. I began to understand that her version of me did not need to be dramatic. It only needed to be repeated. Tired, forgetful, easily confused, bad with details. Each word was mild enough to pass without challenge. Together they made a person who needed Dana between herself and the world. I told myself she was anxious. Dana had always tried to make the world look orderly. When she was 12, she rewrote labels on pantry jars because my handwriting leaned. When she was 25, she arrived an hour early for her own birthday dinner and reset the place cards. Her need for control was not new. What was new was the material she used to satisfy it. She was using me. The morning after the payment request, I sat at my small kitchen table with my calendar and the household page I kept for the month. I removed $160 from the amount I had planned for Dana's next supper. That money was still mine because I had not given it yet. For several minutes I stared at the empty line. Ending the envelope created more than money. It created an unclaimed Tuesday evening, because I had also stopped considering every family request Dana might place there. At 10 o'clock, I walked to the community center. A sign near the entrance advertised a 6-week beginner watercolor class. I had circled the same class in 2 previous seasonal brochures and then declined to register. Once Dana had asked me to help address invitations on class night. Another time she scheduled a warehouse club run and said she needed my membership card. At the registration desk, a woman with silver glasses asked whether I had painted before. "Only walls," I said. She smiled and turned the form toward me. The fee was $72. I paid it. For about 10 minutes, that purchase felt selfish. Then it felt like an appointment. At 2 that afternoon, Dana texted, "Envelope whenever you get a chance." I could have answered by message. I called instead because I wanted her to hear that I was calm. "There won't be an envelope next month," I said. She gave one quick laugh. "Mom, that payment thing was just bookkeeping." "You asked me to pay as a guest. I did. I won't also fund the meal." "You're making family dinner transactional. The request did that." She went quiet. Then she said I was being sensitive. She had divided expenses because groceries were expensive. Everybody should contribute. I agreed that adults could agree on a contribution before a dinner. "So what's the problem?" "We did not agree. You took my grocery money, charged me afterward, and told the family you covered me." "That was a joke." Priya did not hear it as one. Dana's voice hardened. "You talked to Priya about our finances?" "Priya called me about mine." That distinction made her angrier. She warned that relatives would think I was withdrawing from the family. She said Marcus had already planned a larger meal for the following month. She said I knew how much hosting meant to her. All of those statements were true. None of them changed my answer. After we hung up, my hand shook hard enough that I spilled water while filling the kettle. I stood at the counter until it stopped. Restraint is sometimes mistaken for ease. That phone call was not easy. I wanted Dana to call back and say she understood. I wanted to recover my daughter and my dignity in the same conversation. Instead, I made tea. Priya asked me to meet her at a cafe 3 days later. She arrived in blue scrubs under a long coat and placed her phone face down between us. "How long have you been paying for the dinners?" she asked. "Helping with them," I said. "How long?" I told her the pattern. 1 envelope before each monthly supper. I did not calculate 11 months for her. I did not show her the screenshot. I had made my decision without needing a jury. Priya rubbed the edge of her coffee sleeve. "Dana told me not to invite you to our walking group." "Why?" "She said uneven pavement confuses you." I looked at her. "Confuses me?" Those were her words. That hurt in a different place. Money could be separated and named. What Dana had taken from me here was smaller and harder to measure. An ordinary Wednesday morning I had never been allowed to choose. Priya's group walked a loop through Bell Park. The path was paved. There were benches every quarter mile. "Would you like to decide for yourself?" she asked. I said yes before I could imagine what Dana would call it. On Friday, Dana came to my apartment carrying a bakery box. I let her in. She put the box on the table and kept her coat on. "I think we both overreacted," she said. The phrases was neatly balanced and entirely false. She proposed that we call the envelopes hosting gifts. I could keep providing half for the next few months, privately. She would stop sending payment requests. "The money isn't the only problem," I said. "Then what is?" "You have been telling people you support me." She crossed her arms. "People worry about you." "Because you tell them to." I reassure them. By saying I miss bills? "You forgot the water bill last spring." "The utility credited the wrong account. I called them and they corrected it." "You see, there was a problem." I understood then how the story worked. Any ordinary inconvenience could be trimmed until it resembled incapacity. Any correction I offered became proof that I was defensive. "You told Priya pavement confuses me." Dana looked toward the window. "I said you might be uncomfortable." "Those are not the same words." "You are twisting everything." She left the bakery box and took her coat out with her. I did not eat the pastries. I gave them to the watercolor class the following Tuesday, where nobody knew there was a family meaning attached to them. Marcus called me after class. He sounded tired. "Dana says you two are fighting over the grocery money." "We are disagreeing about what she says the money means." Marcus knew I contributed sometimes. He said Dana had told him everyone understood. He had not asked. "We planned a bigger dinner next month," he said. "Then you will need a smaller plan." He did not argue. That was the first sign that the consequence would be real, but not catastrophic. Nobody would lose a home. Nobody would go hungry. Dana would have to serve what she and Marcus could afford, or ask adults openly to bring something. The next supper was smaller. Dana served baked chicken instead of pot roast. There was one vegetable, no rolls, and a store-bought cake on the counter. It was enough food. The shortage existed only beside the performance Dana usually staged. I brought the salad we had agreed on. I had considered staying home. The thought came to me while I washed the lettuce and again while I sealed the bowl. If I did not attend, Dana could say I had withdrawn because money embarrassed me. If I did attend, every missing dish might be presented as my decision. In the end, I went because absence would have made Dana the only person available to explain me. Priya arrived at the same time. She did not ask whether I needed help getting from the car. She simply held the storm door because her hands were free. That ordinary courtesy steadied me more than a speech would have. Inside, Dana had placed my usual chair at the far end of the table instead of beside her. I could not tell whether it was punishment or an effort to prove she was no longer managing me. I sat down without asking. Marcus carried the chicken in. He looked at my salad and said, "Thanks, Lorraine." Dana corrected him. "Mom always brings salad." The sentence was harmless, but I heard the old ownership in it. Even my contribution had to become part of her system. At the table, Dana mentioned grocery prices 3 times. The first time, no one answered. The second time, my cousin offered a recipe for beans. The third time, Dana said, "We're all adjusting now that Mom wants to handle more of her own expenses." 5 faces turned toward me. I set down my fork. "I have always handled my own expenses." Dana smiled too quickly. "That's not what I meant." My brother Evan looked from her to me. "Then what did you mean?" "Lorraine gets stressed by details," Dana said. "I'm trying to help her budget." Evan had accepted Dana's version of me more easily than Priya had, because it required nothing from him. If Dana managed my invitations, Evan did not need to call. If Dana understood my bills, he did not need to ask. But the smaller dinner had placed a visible crack in the story. "Which bills do you pay for Lorraine?" he asked. Dana stared at him. "That's private." Evan turned to me. "Is she paying your bills?" "No," I said. "My bills are mine." The room did not erupt. No one applauded. Marcus studied his plate. One cousin reached for water. The absence of spectacle made the truth feel firmer. "If you want to know something about me," I said, "call me." Dana followed me into the hallway after dinner. "You humiliated me in my own house." Evan asked me a question. "You knew what saying no would do." "Correcting you is not humiliating you." She pressed her lips together. "After everything I do for you." There it was. The sentence the grocery envelopes had been buying. I went home. The next morning, Dana called with an offer. She would apologize privately for sending the request. In return, I would tell the family I had misunderstood it. We could say the $38 was meant for a future restaurant meal. "But it wasn't," I said. "Does that matter more than us?" The question frightened me because it was designed to make truth sound like a rival to love. "It matters to us," I said. She began crying. I listened. I did not mistake her distress for my instruction. When she had quieted, I proposed a family call. Not to discuss every past envelope, not to vote on whether Dana was a good daughter. We would talk about future dinners, future invitations, and who had permission to speak for whom. Dana agreed, but she said she would explain my recent sensitivity. On Wednesday morning, Priya and I walked the Bell Park Loop. I had expected the outing to feel like an alliance against Dana. Instead, the four other walkers discussed a broken sprinkler, a grandson changing majors, and whether the coffee kiosk had stopped selling cinnamon rolls. The path was flat except for one shallow rise. I completed it without trouble. After the others left, Priya and I sat on a bench. "On the call, I can tell them everything Dana said," she offered. I looked at the paved path in front of us. "I don't want you to prosecute her." "Then what should I do?" "Speak for your own choices." Priya considered that. "I can do that." That conversation mattered. If Priya became my spokeswoman, we would only replace one gatekeeper with another. I needed relatives to choose direct relationships, not choose the correct woman to interpret me. The family call took place Thursday at 7. Dana joined from her dining room. Marcus sat beside her. Evan was in his truck, parked outside a hardware store. Priya had just finished a shift. 3 other relatives appeared in small squares. Dana began before everyone had settled. "Mom misread a casual request," she said. "She's been anxious about money lately, and I think that made this bigger than it was." My heart beat hard enough that I could hear it between her sentences. I waited until she finished. Then I said 4 things. "I paid the request. I will not fund future dinners. I manage my own bills. If you want contact with me, ask me directly." Dana opened her mouth, but Marcus spoke first. "Lorraine did give us grocery money," he said. Dana turned toward him. He continued carefully. "I knew it happened sometimes. I thought everybody knew. I won't tell people we're supporting her because we're not." Marcus did not expose a secret or rescue me. He simply stopped lending his silence to Dana's version. Priya spoke next. "If I want to know whether Lorraine can come somewhere, I will ask Lorraine." Evan looked down for a moment. "I will too," he said. One cousin asked whether this meant there would be no more suppers. "That is Dana and Marcus's choice," I said. "If they invite me with a clear arrangement, I can decide." I did not list the old envelopes. I did not explain the water bill error. I did not ask anyone to declare Dana dishonest. My daughter looked at me through the screen. "You got what you wanted," she said. Then she left the call. I had not wanted to defeat her. I had wanted my own name back. At that moment, the difference did not comfort either of us. For the next 48 hours, Dana alternated silence with messages. First she said the family had turned against her. Then she said Marcus had betrayed her. Then she offered to restart the suppers if I resumed half the envelope and told Evan we had settled everything. I answered once. I told her I would attend a dinner where the cost was stated before the invitation. I would bring a dish or pay an agreed share. I would not privately finance a meal while being publicly described as dependent. The next supper was canceled. Marcus wrote to the family that they were pausing because the old budget no longer worked. It was the first time the cost had been named without my competence being used as an explanation. Not everyone admired me for it. One cousin said I should have let the small charge go. Another said mothers sometimes had to absorb a daughter's pride. Evan did not defend me immediately, which disappointed me. The empty Sunday arrived with more force than I expected. At 4 o'clock, the hour when I usually carried something to Dana's carport, I found myself standing beside my refrigerator with nowhere to go. I had wanted honesty, but honesty had not set a table. It had removed one. I took out the watercolor paper from Tuesday's class. Our instructor had asked us to paint the same pair 3 times, once by looking at the whole shape, once by looking only at light, and once by looking only at shadow. My first pair resembled a green light bulb. I nearly threw it away. Instead, I painted the second. That evening was not a triumphant new beginning. It was quiet, and I was lonely. But the loneliness belonged to the truth. I did not have to pay anyone or diminish myself to make it disappear. At 6, Evan called. He began by discussing the weather. Then he asked whether I thought Dana would resume the dinners. "Ask Dana," I said. He cleared his throat. "I don't want to get in the middle." "You were already in the middle. You just let her do the talking." He became defensive. He said he had work, a house, and his own grown children. He could not inspect every family disagreement. "Calling me is not an inspection." We ended the conversation politely and badly. When I set down the phone, I understood that direct contact would not automatically produce good contact. It only gave us the chance to be honest about who was choosing distance. That distinction kept me from begging him to understand. Justice, when it is ordinary, does not arrive with unanimous agreement. Sometimes it looks like an empty Sunday on a calendar. Priya did not discuss Dana. She texted, "Wednesday 9 same loop. 3 Wednesdays after the family call, I knew the names of all 4 walkers. Mina took her coffee too sweet. Carol carried tissues for everyone. Ben walked the first lap quickly and the second one slowly." Priya usually arrived straight from an overnight shift and pretended she was not tired. No one asked me to account for my family. I introduced myself as Lorraine, not as Dana's worried mother. When the group needed someone to keep the rotation for choosing the coffee stop, I volunteered. Clear turns suited me. The difference was that they had asked. My watercolor class continued too. I was not talented in any surprising way. My first trees looked like green umbrellas. By the 5th week, they looked more like trees. That was enough. At the end of the 6 weeks, the instructor taped everyone's work to the multipurpose room wall. I invited Priya, but I did not ask her to bring the family. She came alone after her shift and stood in front of my 3 pairs. "The middle one is my favorite," she said. It was mine too. I had painted it on the canceled supper Sunday, although I did not tell her that. The picture did not prove I was healed. It proved that an evening Dana once controlled had become usable time. Priya and I walked to the parking lot together. She asked whether I wanted her to call during the week or whether Wednesdays were enough. "Call when you have something to say," I told her. She laughed. "That sounds fair." It was the kind of direct arrangement I had wanted all along. No interpreter, no obligation disguised as concern, and no promise larger than either of us could keep. 6 weeks after the call, Evan left a voicemail. "I'd like to visit Saturday," he said, "if you want me to." He had not asked Dana to check my calendar. I invited him for coffee. Evan arrived with no flowers and no grand speech. I appreciated both absences. "Dana sounded convincing," he began. "That explains why you believed her," I said. "It does not explain why you never asked me." He looked down at his cup. "It was convenient," he said. "She organized everything. I let her." That was a better apology than the one he had planned. "What will you do differently?" He said he would call me directly. If someone made a claim involving me, he would verify it with me. He would stop treating my quietness as consent. I did not announce that trust had been restored. We agreed he would visit once a month and see whether his behavior matched his words. Over the next 2 months, it did. Dana and I exchanged only practical messages. She asked whether I wanted a box of old photographs. I answered yes. She left them with the building manager instead of coming up. I thanked her. Neither of us used the exchange as proof that everything was repaired. 4 months after the $38 request, she sent me a direct invitation. Sunday supper, 6 o'clock, smaller group. Each adult brings 1 dish. Would you like to come? There was no apology for telling people I missed bills. There was no acknowledgement of the walking invitation she had blocked. Changed wording was not yet changed character, but it was a truthful invitation. I replied that I would come for 1 hour and bring salad. I did not call that forgiveness. I called it one dinner with stated terms. Then I put my phone in my pocket and walked to Bell Park. Priya and the others were waiting near the painted line where we always began. At 9 o'clock, we started walking.